Hello everyone, my name is Varun and today we are going to create a to-do list app in React using hooks. So this is the demo of the application that we are going to build. So let me add few to-do items, right? Let's add one more to-do. So you can see that typing the text and pressing the add to-do button is adding the list item, right? So clicking on the to-do item is going to complete my to-do list item. Again, clicking on this is going to make a reverse operation, that is incomplete the to-do item. Similarly, there is a cross button which is going to delete the to-do item. So let me click on the delete button. So you can see that it is deleting the to-do item and delete. So this is the bare minimum application that we are going to create. So before diving into the code, what we are going to do is we are going to think in React for planning these certain components of the application. So I hope that you will like this course. So let's get started. So before diving into the code, let's plan out our application. So according to me, we are going to create a basic layout for our application. Let me center the UI, right? So there is going to be a heading, then there is going to be a text box and a button, and then there is going to be a list of different to-dos. Apart from that, there will be the option to delete multiple to-dos. So as we have planned the different components of our application, let's dive into our component tree for the application. So the very first thing we are going to do is we are going to create a root component which we are going to say as a to-do app, the main container of our application. After that, we will be needing a header. For this, we are going to create a header component. Then there is going to be a text field where we are going to actually enter the content for my to do. Then there is going to be a button component. For button component, clicking on that button component is going to add my to do to the to do list. So now let's see what we require for displaying the to do list. So first of all, there is going to be a to do list component at the bottom of the text field and button. And inside this to do list component, there is going to be a single to do item component, which will be creating a single item for my to do list, right? And inside this to do item, there is going to be a delete component. So these are all the different components that we are going to build for our application. So for add to do and delete to do, you can see that we have used a button component. So for that, we are going to create a single component called button component, and we will be reusing that UI of that component for add to do and delete to do. So guys, this is always a best practice to always plan out the things before diving into the code base. Try to structure the application to see how the different components are going to be divided and what are the different things that we can reuse in our application, React application. So to start with this application, I have already created a basic folder structure. First of all, I have used create React app to create its boilerplate. And for building this application, I have created few of the folders. Like you can see that I have created a components folder and then a UI folder. Similarly, I have created a features folder, and inside that I have created a feature for implementing a to-do application. Usually in normal big applications, like let's say we are creating an e-commerce application, we know that that kind of application will be having multiple screens, multiple modules. So we used to follow feature kind of strategy where we tend to create subfolders in my features folder, and each folder is serving a one purpose. And it is not mandatory to follow such kind of architecture because React has given us the flexibility to create our own structure. It is not like Angular where we use a CLI and that CLI is deciding the folder structure for us. Of course, there can be a case where we can configure the folder structure by ourselves. So let's move on to implementing this application now. Once the architecture is done, now let's move on to creating the real application. So let me now first remove this basic div with actually container, right? So now you can see that it has automatically restructured it. Now we have to create a basic layout for our application. So now we have to create a header. All right. So instead, this is the header. Okay, let me remove this. So guys, now we have a header. So the better way to create the header is to create its own component, right? So for that, what we are going to do is we are going to have a component called header. Right now it is going to give me the error because this component is not present at this moment. So let's create the header component. For creating the header component, I have to go to components. uh, then I need to create a new file called header.js. In header.js, we can have a similar code where you can see that I have added a header tag, right, with text center, and then there is a h3 with to-do list app. Okay, so now let's include this header component in our main application. So let me press enter, and yes. So the header section of our application is done. So now let's move on to the other section, that is text field and button component, right? So first of all, we need to go to the next row, right? So we can add input type as text, right? Similarly, we can create a component for our input. So let's have a component called text field component, right? With placeholder as this one. But now this text field component doesn't exist. So for that, what we have to do is we have to create a text field component. So in the UI folder, let's create the text field.js file. All right. And then add this code. So this is very basic code. I am just reusing the component. I am just creating a common generic input with my class form control and type text. And I am passing the props as a spread operator so that whatever things I'm going to pass in the text field like placeholder or other items, it will be it will be added to this input, right? So now let's import this component also. All right, so it is giving, okay, it is not giving the error, but it is showing the two inputs. So let me remove my on. So now we have input text ready. Now we need to create a button component. So for button component, what we are going to do is we are going to create another column in the same, and for that I have already included the button component. So it is giving me the error because button component is not there at this moment. So as this is going to be the UI component, I'm going to create a folder called file called button.js, and inside the button.js I'm just going to create a wrapper. So here also I have created input type with type button, and I am using spread operator so that all the props which are passed to the button component will be available and added over there. So now let's import the button component as well in our application. All right, and let's refresh the application. All right, guys, so you can see that our application is taking the life now. You can now see the text input and the add to do button. Right now these are not doing anything, so my idea is that let's first build the UI and then we are going to add states and events to the React application. So let's now add the list component for the application. For that, let me add some code base for that. All right. So I have created a UL, and inside this UL, I'm going to create li component test1. All right. And then different list items. So for different list items, let me add some class to this li. Okay. So now it is looking better. This is just a shadow and then list group item and then action. All right. And text center is just for centering the text for each list item. All right. Now for each li, you can see that we need to have a delete button as well. So in order to do that, we need to create a span component, and inside the span component, I would prefer writing the text, and after that there can be a button component. All right, and then with value as x. And let me remove this and then add some styling to this button component by adding the classes. All right, so now you can see that this is the button component that I have created. So let's actually copy this and then replace it with other values, test, test2 and test3. Okay, so as you can see that we have a beautiful UI ready, but the thing is I am not dividing my UI into multiple components like the way we have done for header and text field and button. So let's divide our UI into multiple components. So ideally there should be a to-do list component. All right. So instead of this UL and li, we need to have a to-do list component, and inside this to-do list component, we are going to add this UL and li's. Okay, so for that, let's go to our feature folder and create another file called to-do list.js, and inside that file, let's create another component called, okay, and let me enclose this as well. All right. So now the basic UI of the to-do list is added. Now we need to include this to-do list component in our application. So let me add it. So this is the test that I am seeing. We can actually further divide this to-do list component by separating the li. All right. So for adding the li, we are going to create another component called to-do component. So in my feature branch to do, I am going to create another file called todo.js, and inside the todo.js application, we need to add to do test, and actually yes, li, and then this. So to do is created. Now what I can do is I have to use this to do component in my to do list. So for that, what I need to do is I need to import it. So let's first import this component and then use this component. Instead of li, I am going to use to do. Okay, so as you can see, there is no difference. I have just divided the code base into different parts. Now there is going to be to do list component, and then in to do list there is going to be a to do component. So for li, let me add a beautiful CSS for the same. We can, yes. Similarly, we can have, let me see. What we have to do is we have to actually copy the code from here and add test and button like this. So now button is not available. That's why it is giving the error. So let's import the button component as well. Okay, guys. So our application is going to take life now. Now, as you can see that there is no need to have this UL and LI in my to-do app component, and I can comment that out. All right. So basic UI of this application is ready. We have used Bootstrap for building a beautiful responsive UI, and I have divided the whole application into different subcomponents that we had discussed in our planning phase. Now is the time that we can add life to this dummy application by adding states. So for that we are going to use hooks. As you can see that we are using a functional programming approach. So let's start with importing the state hook in my application. So for that we are going to use state hook. Okay, so while planning the application, we need to know that what are the different states that we need to have in our application. So according to me, for handling this text input, we need to have a state, and then in order to show all the different list items in the UI, we need to have a to-dos array, which is going to be a state for showing all the list items for the array. So let's create to-do value and then set val. Oops, there is a error. All right. And now what we can do is we can use this to do value in our text field component, right? So here what we can do is we can add value as to do value. All right. And then on change of this, like you know that in React, these are the controlled components. So React need to know that what to do once there is a change. So I need to create on change handler method for on change. So this is just a basic function which is going to update the to do value by using the set value component, right? So let's create on change handler is equal to e. So here we are going to use set val for e dot target dot value. All right. So our first state is done. So whenever I'm typing, React is actually hitting the on change handler, which is actually setting the value in the to do value. So React is knowing that what is the value in this state at this moment. All right. So let's move to let's add another state which will hold all the list of to do items. So for that, I'm going to add another to do's set to do's is equal to use state blank array. All right. So now at this moment, this to do is doing nothing. What we need to do now is clicking on the add to do should hit a method which adds the value that is in the text box to my to do's array. So for that, let's add a click handler on the button component. All right. Oops. So now we need to define the add to do. So let's create another method called add to do. And here what we have to do is we also need to have complete and incomplete behavior. So we are going to create a to do object. Const new to do is equal to text add to do value, the current value in the input, and then completed as false because right now this task is not completed. So I have just created a dummy object for me. Now what we need to do is we need to add this object in our to-dos array. So for that, let's use set to-dos, and in that we need to add new to-do and old to-dos. So here we are just following the spread operator syntax. I am adding a new value of to-do, new to-do object at the front, so that all the new to-dos that I am adding should show at the top, and then copying the rest of the to-dos. So this is the most basic thing of managing the state in the React application. So once the to-do is done, we need to clear the text box, right? So I'm going to use set val as blank. So first step for managing the to-dos is done. All right. So once I add the to-dos, it is available in the to-dos array by clicking on the add to-do button. In order to see if all the to-dos array is getting filled, what we can do is let's look at the logs. Okay. So in the console, let me add console.log to-dos. So let me add 1, then 2. Okay. So whenever I'm pressing the add to do, it is updating my state with set to dos, and to dos array is getting populated, which I am printing over there using the console log. So you can see that two items are there. One is TW with completed as false, another is one with completed as false. And it is actually following the descending order, because what I have done is I am firstly adding the new to do, and using then providing all the previous to dos for the same. Now let's use these to dos to build the actual UI. So let me remove this, and first of all, we are going to show the to-do list component only if there are to-do items, right? So to-dos dot length is greater than 0, and only then you have to show the to-do list. All right, so I have refreshed the code base. Let me also, okay. So now refreshing on the page, you are not seeing the predefined to-do list because right now to-do length is not there, right? So it is empty. That is why this is not called. We have just used the convention in the JSX. So now if to-dos are present, what we need to do is we need to pass these to-dos to my to-do list component. So here I have passed the to-dos to my to-do list component. So let's open the to-do list component, and so all those to-dos are already present over there in to-dos as a property. And let me also first use these to-dos. So here I need to pass. So what I can do is I can have a mapper for displaying all the to-do items. Okay, so let's do that. And then I can use return to do, and then okay, there is some error. Let me see what's the error. It is done, and then we have to create this and remove this. It should work. All right. So from all the to dos, I'm using a mapper for to do, and then we have a to do value. What I can do is I can pass id as index for the to do, and then to do as to do. Okay, so now I have passed a single to do to my to do component, Now, in order to use that, in order to display the to do, as you can see, I have already declared all the properties that I'm going to pass in my application. So I have already passed to do and ID at this moment. So to do is available and I can actually use to do dot text here. All right. And as you know that React wants that all the elements should be unique. So I am, for the timing, I am just using the key as the identifier for my to do. So let me refresh and let's add. This is the first to do item and let's click on add. All right. So guys, you can see that we have a new item added. So it is also saying that the to-do list should have a unique property. So we will be fixing this issue as well. So for now, let me close this. And we have just created a basic functionality of adding a to-do and showing that to-do in the list. So right now clicking on it is not marking it as completed. So we are going to do that as well. Similarly, it is doing nothing when I click on cross button. So we are going to work on this functionality as well. So first of all, let me also make another change in the application. Right now, whenever I am typing this stuff and pressing the enter is not doing anything, and I have to manually click on the add to do button. So for that, we need to have another handler in our application called on key press event. Okay, so let's go to our text field component and add on key press event. Okay, so it is giving error that on key press component is not present. So let me define this component as well. All right. So guys, in on key press, you can see that I haven't done anything fancy. I'm just picking up that what is the character code of the key being pressed. So if the character code is 13, then click add to do. So for enter key press, the code is 13. All right. So event provides us the character code for onKeyPress handler. If it is 13, that is, if it is enter, then just do the functionality of adding a to do that we have already created at the above and at this function. So I'm just calling this method. All right. So let's try it out. I'm doing this is the first to do. Okay. Now pressing the enter has added the to do in the list. So this is the another to do. So now this is also added. Great. So now let's move to the another part of the application, that is marking the to do as complete or incomplete. Right. So for that we can see that we need to add a handler in our this to do component. So we are going to add handler in our to do component as a span. Okay. So let me add on click handler with complete to do. So I have already created the complete to do method. Right now this method is not visible. So as we are saying that the main container component for this whole application is going to be to do app, we need to define the complete to do component in our to do app component, as this is the container. So this is what we call as prop drilling. We are going to click a method on this and it will first go back to to-do list and then go back to to-do app and then hit the action. Okay, so let's create a complete to-do method. So whenever I am creating a component as complete to-do, we need to pass that method from to-do list. Okay, so let's add complete to-do. So we need to define that complete to do as well. So whenever the component whenever the item is complete, what we have to do is we have to just mark this completed as true, And based on this flag, we are going to add strike through uh, property in our text component, which will show a line, which will be seen as completed. So what I have done is I have the all the to-dos, and this is the bare minimum logic where I am actually getting the identifier ID, and from that ID I am saying that if it is completed is false, then make mark it as true, and if it is true, then mark it as false. Then what I'm doing is I'm calling the set to dos method, which is again further calling the updating the value in the state. So we need to go to to-do list component. Right now we have complete to do, but we have not used it in our code base. So let's go to the code base and let's add complete to do over there. Oh, sorry, there is a bug. All right. So I can see that. All right. So this is going to update my state. But right now I haven't done anything which is going to change the UI, right? So if I type anything and click on it, it is actually hitting the method and behind the scenes, but it is not showing anything. Okay. So in order to do that, what we have to do is we need to add property in our style on li as this one. So I'm just using the text decoration property, and for each to do I am saying that if is completed. So if to do dot is completed is true, then add line through to that li component, else do nothing. Okay, so let's try it out. This is the first to do. This is the second to do item, and then clicking on it. All right, guys. So you can see that line through is visible. Also, I think it should show a pointer instead of, so hovering over this to do item, it should show the pointer. So right now the pointer is not changing, so let's do that as well. So for cursor to pointer, I need to create a class in app.css file. Let's create a class. I'm just adding cursor as pointer. Now I can use this class in my application. So here what I need to do is, okay, pointer is already there. So let me refresh. This is the first to do item, and let me hover. No, it is not showing it. Let me retry it again. Test here. Looks like there is some kind of issue, which is why it is not changing the icon. Mm, let me see. Okay, let me see how it can work. Okay. So I have not actually included the CSS in my application. So let's include the CSS also. And let me refresh the app. And then, okay. Now guys, you can see that the cursor has changed to the pointer. All right. So let me refresh the application again. So we have accomplished one test, complete and incomplete functionality. Now similarly, we need to do a functionality for delete to do. So right now delete to do is doing nothing. Okay. So for delete to do, we are again going to follow the same steps. That is, we are going to add a delete to do method here like this. It is showing me error that to do is not available. So clicking on the delete to do, I am picking the identifier from the list, that is ID, and then I am passing that ID as a prop dealing to my container component, that is add to do, and here I'm going to delete the to do. So now let's define the delete to do. For delete to do is going to be, I'm going to get the ID. Okay. So for deletion, what we have to do is we can use the filter function. What we can do is let's create new to-dos as to-dos.filter. We are not going to use this value and we are only interested in index, and if index is not equal to ID. Okay, and then we can have set to-dos as new to-dos. It has given me the error that semicolon is missing, but semicolon is added, missing semicolon on line 35. Let me figure it out. Okay, actually it is the callback method that I need to use. All right, and then let's use it. All right, guys. So you can see that clicking on the delete to do, I am getting the ID, and from the existing all the list of the to dos, I am filtering and I am preparing a new to do array where I am saying that if index is not matching with the selected deleted element, only those elements should be there in the new to dos. So similarly, set to dos is called, which is going to update my to dos array with all the to dos without the to do that I have clicked as delete to do. Okay, now let's move to my to do list. Delete to do I have already passed, right? Now I need to pass this delete to do to do component. So in to do, delete to do is there. All right, and now I have to add a handler in my button, on my button, as on click handler, right? And let me define the method here itself as, sorry, delete to do with unique ID. Perfect. So right now, whenever I'm going to click on the cross button, there is an event handler called on click, and it is going to pass delete to do method. Not going to pass, it is going to call the delete to do method with the unique ID of that specific to do. And as a prop drilling, we have passed the delete to do and ID from container to this UI component. So it is going to go back to its parent, that is to do list. From here you can see delete to do, and then from here it is going to come here, and from here it is going to call this delete to do method. Once this method is hit, it is going to update the state. Once the state is updated, it is going to be updated in my to-do list component automatically. All right, guys, much of the business logic is done. Let's see if our application is working fine or not. This is the first to do. This is the second to do. Now let me click on delete. All right. So you can see that it has deleted the element. Now click on this as well. So this is also done. Let's try it again. Creating a video for to-do list, editing the video for the to-do list app, clicking on the particular to-do item is making it complete or incomplete, right? Similarly, deleting the clicking on the cross button is deleting that particular to-do list. So guys, we have created the whole application. So let's see its full view. Okay, actually it should be it should be in the center, but the width needs to be minimized. So let me modify it. Let's see what's not done in the right way. Okay, okay. So we have to remove this and we have to edit over there. So I think now it will work. Let me. All right, guys. So we have created our to-do application from scratch. So we have followed multiple phases. We first planned the application with different components, UI component, functional components, right? And then we looked at the hierarchy. We built the application architecture, the basic folder structure. Then we dived into building the basic UI for the application. And then we tried to divide the whole UI into separate components so that we can have better reusability. That's all guys from my side. If you have any queries, you can let me know in the comment section so that I can resolve your queries and doubts. And if you feel that I have made few mistakes while coding this application, obviously it can be possible. So do let me know so that I can also improve on the same. Apart from that, there are many things which we can do in order to improve the quality of this application. First of all, as you can see that we are passing each and everything from this to-do app component to my other components, which is not a good practice because once the application is becoming complex, there are multiple components in the application. We are going to get stuck in these prop drilling thing. So instead of having this kind of structure, we can add Redux to this application. And apart from that, in terms of code quality, we can add better comments for this application. We can make domain models for the application to have better reusability and to have a better business logic to be in a separate place. That's all from my side, guys. Thank you.